Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Once again, we are going to talk about Pakistani electoral reforms. And it seems that the confrontation or the environment of confrontation that was there between the government of Pakistan and the ECP, it has escalated really quickly. Today, two federal ministers, actually one advisor, one minister, spoke to the media, and we were told that Election Commission of Pakistan, and this we have been hearing for quite some time, Election Commission of Pakistan, particularly Chief Election Commissioner, is speaking like a spokesman of opposition parties. Then again, it was also the allegation also surfaced that in its final report, the Election Commission of Pakistan did not include the reference to or conclusions about the example of Philippines, where electronic voting machines have been quite successful. When you hear all of this, and then you realize that in a special, a parliamentary committee meeting, where these things were being discussed, and I don't remember such an instance in the past, the delegation of Election Commission actually walked out. And I've never heard of such examples. We will try to understand what is going on. Why is it that EVM, electronic voting machine, which is not supposed to be that complicated an issue, has become such a big one? Before I introduce the panelists I've got in the studio and with me on Skype, our team has prepared a report for you. Let us watch that, and then we are going to discuss.
The disagreement between the government and the Election Commission of Pakistan over the use of electronic voting machines continues. The Election Commission of Pakistan is reluctant in introducing EVMs in the electoral process for the next general elections. Meanwhile, the government is convinced that the EVMs are the best option to ensure free and fair elections. The President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi, tweeted that the introduction of EVMs in the Philippines resulted in increasing voter confidence, phenomenal reductions in election petitions, murders, and violence. The 2007 elections in Philippines were held under the traditional paper voting system, and results were announced after 6 weeks. By using EVMs in 2019, results were announced within a few hours of conclusion of voting. The people's trust level on the Philippines 2007 elections was only 35%, whereas in 2019 elections, people's trust level increased to 89%. Federal Minister for Information and Technology Chaudhry Fawad Hussain expressed surprise over the exclusion of this data from the Election Commission of Pakistan's reports on the use of EVMs. Electoral reforms are need of the hour, and all stakeholders must try to reach a consensus as soon as possible so that the country may move forward in the right direction.
Right, you have seen the package, and we have to I have to introduce the guests in the studio and on Skype. In the studio, I'm joined by Arif Chaudhry Sahab, who is a legal expert, an expert also on constitutional affairs. Thank you very much for being part of the program. And next to him is Ahmed Jawad Sahab, who needs no introduction, but he is Secretary Information, Central Secretary Information, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the ruling party. Thank you very much for being part of the program. On Skype, we are joined by Rana Ehsan Afzal Khan, who is a young leader of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, and also Kamran Murtaza Sahab, who is Senator of Jamiat-ul-Ulama-e-Islam, Fazlur Rahman Group. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the program. Before I actually move forward, I have to actually opine about a couple of things. While we keep on underplaying technology, I was just listening to the package, and how technology has even changed our grammar is amazing. So-and-so has tweeted about something. Usually people talk, they don't tweet. But now, because Twitter has become such a big thing, America's former president and current president also used to take pride in tweeting. So, but Azam Sawati today said, and this is very important, election reforms are required to ensure transparency, free, fair elections are on top of our agenda. and also Babar Awan Saab, advisor for Parliamentary Affairs. The opposition is criticizing the electoral reforms for no reason. The government is taking steps for the use of IVoting and electronic voting machines. So these are important statements that I was referring to. Let me now start with Arif Chaudhry Sahab. Arif Chaudhry Sahab, why is it that something as fundamental as technology has become such a dividing factor between government, opposition, and then somehow election commission also?
Thank you very much. Long time ago, when this debate originated, it started. My opinion was, and today still I hold that opinion, that election commission may give some suggestions, but the way it is acting, it is unheard of. An election commission, and particularly a body which is not above or even equal to the parliament. Whatever they say, parliamentarians, they may be infighting, they may not like this idea, EVM is approved over there or not approved. But it is none of the job of election commission.
I'm glad that you actually pointed out that it is not equivalent to the election commission. There are three pillars of government. We know judiciary, executive, and legislature. Which branch does it actually belong to? The Election Commission of Pakistan?
It is not any branch of Pakistan. The main pillars, Election Commission, its duty is very, important. Pivotal role is because, the government is formed, the constitution is run through parliament, and parliament is constituted through elections, and this is the job of election commission.
Right. So I asked this because I understand that the government is saying that the head of election commission is someone they don't trust, right? But the mechanism, I'm told, to remove him is to actually approach the Supreme Judicial Council, which is a judicial council, and this is not a judicial body. So that becomes a confusing thing for me. I'm going to actually...
But it is not the only body for which, the modus operandi or the method to remove is the council.
And perhaps then it shouldn't be called Supreme Judicial Council, or perhaps it should be called Independent Institutions Accountability Board.
Accountant General.
With your permission, let me actually bring in the other guest. Let me ask your permission, Ahmed Jawad Sahab. If you want to actually talk right now, you can do it. But I want to, there are two opposition representatives. I just want you to reply to all questions and aspects. Rana Ahsan Afzal Saab, your party doesn't seem to be in a mood to play ball. And I mean, with due respect, if you remember those days, and you and I have discussed those days, when your party was actively considering use of EVMs, and internet voting as well. But now all of a sudden, it seems that you are against every idea that is actually placed by the government. Why?
First of all, we're not the idea of EVM and bringing the overseas Pakistani for giving them a method to vote and participate in the elections. We're up for it, and the Electoral Act of 2017 included both these issues. And the issue is that what PTI is doing, they want that the EVM should be installed all across Pakistan for the 2023 election, and we feel that it is quite unpractical. It is almost impossible, because when you draw a parallel comparison of EVM being introduced in other countries, you see time ranges of 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. So, there is a process of introducing EVM. You have to run trials, you have to slowly build confidence of the voter and the parties. And what is utmost, Pitafi Saab, is that all of this has to be done through consensus. Not a single party can bulldoze that it has to be done in 2 years. It is for the ECP to decide how...
With due respect, consensus will build if you want to actually speak to You want to speak to the government. It doesn't seem that you are even ready to listen to the government's perspective, are you?
Pitafi Saab, this is a misconception and a narrative which the government has been playing and the ministers have been playing. We have had the same stance since day one, which is that we would want that we go to the ECP, all the parties should be invited over there, the practicality, the modalities, the logistics and everything should be discussed, electoral reforms, each and every aspect should be discussed, and then whatever draft or recommendations we are able to bring forward with consensus from all the political parties and the ECP, we can take them up to the assembly and we can go for legislation or electoral reform.
I mean,
this suggestion.
Sorry to cut you, Jahanzeb, but for a party that has been talking about vote ko izzat do, that means give more weightage to the parliament as well, because that is a product of voting. Are you not undermining the institution by asking people to go to ECM, Election Commission of Pakistan, instead of parliamentary committees?
Not at all. I mean, election commission is the major stakeholder in whatever is decided, and then later on be forwarded to the committees in the parliament for further discussion.
Right.
And I think
that is a good point. I'm going to come back to it. Allow me to actually bring in Kamran Mirza Sahab. Kamran Mirza Sahab, thank you very much for joining us. He has gone offline. I think we'll try to get him back. But until he comes back, Ahmed Jawad Sahab, you have listened to the discussion by Arif Chaudhry Sahab, also done as an observer. Your response, sir. Then I have a question for you.
Farrukh, first of all, you very rightly pointed about our transit to technology and how things change with the advent of new technology and adoption of new technology. You gave the example of Twitter, but I would like to give you examples which are quite similar to electronic voting machine.
I'll have to cut you. We have to take a very quick break. When we come back, we are going to resume discussion right from where Ahmed Jawad Sahab left it. Take a break.
कुछ फूट देखे ऐसे एक आग लगी सीने में मिलकर जब हमें थे ताकत जब मकसद था जब पास नजर आता अपने फिर रोक सका ना कोई यूं पाकिस्तान बना था
Who am I? Am I the fire that burns at a Sufi's abode, where devotees come in reverence to seek warmth for frost-bitten souls and rekindle the flame within? They come in throngs from all directions and in all hues to stop a while, but never to stay. Who am I? Am I the willow tree that gives shade to the jaded, but does not bear fruit? So when the sun mellows into a more merciful countenance, it's time to bid adieu. Who am I?
When one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us.
Welcome back. Before going to the break, I had asked Ahmed Jawad Sahab to respond to the criticism of government's approach. Ahmed Jawad Sahab, you'll have to start from the very start, please.
Farrukh, you very rightly pointed out the example of technology. How does it help and how does it change the trends and the procedures? You gave the example of Twitter. I think the most probably the sensitive and the thing which we must be most cautious is money. And if we can have transaction of money with a thumb impression or with facial ID online digitally, I mean our entire wealth, whatever we have, I mean what can be more important than that? And we have accepted that. You get a visa, go to America, you have a passport on your visa, your record is in their computer, everything is there, you are standing there, yet they ask you, put your fingers and thumb impressions. Right. What for? Basically, the identification through the documents, there can always be some gaps or they can always be flawed. But this is something from the nature that your facial ID, your thumb impression, these are unique identifications.
Right.
And
so
when we...
is it what you are saying actually it doesn't undermine your own position, because the opposition just now, they said that you don't know how to build consensus. And I give you two examples. Who do you have problem with right now? Chief Election Commissioner. the constitution and the bylaws actually stipulate how he is elected or he is nominated. And there's a process. The Prime Minister had to reach out to the opposition leader. Didn't happen. In the end, it had to go to the Supreme Court, High Court, then it had to come back to the committee, and there was a consensus, a compromise candidate who came out. Now, as we speak, once again, the Prime Minister wrote a letter. I mean, you realize that in the same chamber, they actually sit 15 feet away from each other, right? And yet you have to write a letter. You propose certain names came from the other side. Election Commission is not complete. So why can't you build consensus?
First of all, I would not like to go back and debate the selection of Chief Election Commission, how it was done. I think right now...
But you are complaining, your party is complaining about it.
Yes, I mean, party is complaining for the reason that there is a very clear impression coming out of the actions of Election Commission, which seems quite aligned with the stance of opposition. I mean, Election Commission of Pakistan is supposed to be a very professional and technical and neutral independent institution when they are handling something like this, election reforms. I mean, their stance should be very different.
When did you first get this impression that the Chief Election Commissioner might be partisan? Can you give us any timeline?
I think after they sent those objections, a list of
not
objections.
Since Daska?
I mean, no. I mean,
because at that time, the ministers came out.
Yes, there were complaints, even the Karachi election, the Faisal Wada seat. I mean, all the political parties objected to the results of Karachi by-elections. Yet it was allowed, the result was allowed to go on. I mean, it was bulldozed. It was kind of bulldozed by the Election Commission.
Early in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, PMLN and other parties, they refused to participate in the recounting because of the certain technical lapses, and they just counted themselves again and declared the results. You know, so the bias, the impression of being biased, it was slowly coming through different incidents in the past.
Very interesting. If you are accusing somebody of being partisan, you can at least tell us which party is he actually aligning with, right? From the government ministers, I got the impression today and yesterday and before that he is aligning with PMLN. And what we saw, what we heard from you, you are giving an example of Karachi. Again, there it seems that you are accusing him of aligning with People's Party.
Okay, let me clarify here. The debate which we are doing right now, this is government versus opposition and Election Commission.
Right.
So the opposition here, we are not splitting them into different stances. I mean, the People's Party or PMLN, they have the similar stance on the election reform.
Karachi elections also?
Karachi election, I think
you
asked me that when did you start doubting about Election Commission being biased? So I gave you an example, but if you force me to connect it with the debate of Election Commission reforms, I think it has no relation. The Election Commission reforms is a different subject.
Right.
And
that's a very good point. Allow me to actually go back to Arif Chaudhry Sahab. Arif Chaudhry Sahab, you have been listening to the government's point of view and opposition. It appears to me that the government is worried that like in the past, in the next election, somebody might actually try to fix the elections against the government or ruling party. And the opposition is afraid of technology because they think that the government might not do the same thing. The only natural possibility seems to be, or avenue seems to be, them talking to each other. And it won't happen on the second tier or third tier leadership. It will have to be the leaders of the two benches. Can that happen?
No. Pitafi sir, the way it started from the very inception of this government, it is very clear that, it's going to end in some big disaster in terms of... at the end of the day, things are not going to...
You said that is going to end.
No,
the confrontation.
Confrontation, because, they sometimes, seem to be spoiling their own case, because as far as the accountability, I just want to quote the example they were, PMLN, and People's Party, they were always alleging that, there is a nexus between Imran Khan and, NAB. NAB, Niazi, Gatjod, they are together. So now, same thing is happening that on the other side. They are saying that, there is a nexus between the opposition and the Election Commission.
Okay.
So where it goes to? If they have really something against the Chief Election Commissioner or any members, so they should go and adopt the same way which is meant to remove the Chief Election Commissioner. And, because there is no other way except to go and, file a judicial reference against him. And if they cannot do, then they have to live with the situation. But now, your question...
Judicial reference against a person whose appointment is not basically judicial, right? But how much time does it take? No. If you want to hold somebody accountable, if they want to remove the Chief Election Commissioner, and let's suppose that they have genuine evidence on their side, how much time will it take?
It may take a hell lot of time, and we have seen, you're talking about reference against, judicial reference against who is not judicial, but judicial reference against who are judicial. It took years and years, and in many cases they retired. So, but there is no way out because you have that law. And until
does the Constitution deliberately want to actually make everything move on snail pace?
I don't know. It's not, this was not the intent of those who were really involved in the Constitution.
What was?
Yeah, but things are moving towards that side, and it has so happened, because in Election Commission, if we strictly come to back to Election Commission, they have to understand the situation now. Government versus opposition. Opposition is bent upon to oppose anything which comes out from the mouth of the government. They are not going to accept that.
Right.
And the Election Commission, they should not have shown at least this much anger and anxiety. And
that's a good point. And I pointed out at the very start that it is unprecedented that Election Commission delegation would walk out of a parliamentary committee, right? In protest. But with due respect, it is only the politicians who are talking to the media. Election Commission had its 37-point, complaints, but it hasn't even shown it to the media, right? So that means that can you keep on attacking an institution whose job it is not to speak to the media?
That's what is happening, because, and I was just going towards that side, when the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who is the Chief Executive of the country, he, directly criticizes the Election Commission, then our case fails, on this side, who is at fault. Because,
does it, I understand your point, he's Chief Executive, and of course, a Chief Election Commissioner is a big post also. It might be individuals, it might be institutions. But does it actually give you the impression that because of all this infighting between politicians and now bureaucrats and appointed posts, the country is becoming more ungovernable?
Yes. The reason is that, everybody is going according to his own whims. Nobody is, interested what is going to happen, because as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, he should not have been so... I'm
just told that we have to go to Rana Sahab.
Okay.
Rami, I'm going to come back to you. Rana Sahab, it seems that government is new at what it's doing, but your party seems to be actually not getting along at all. And there is a reason. Government attributes one reason, media attributes another. Government says that you want relief from accountability, but the punditry keeps on saying that your party is so divided between Shehbaz Sharif, who is pro-reconciliation, and Maryam Nawaz Sahiba or Nawaz Sharif, who is confrontationist, that you actually, this is a cop-out, that you want to object to everything rather than helping out the country by building consensus on these matters?
First of all, Pitafi Saab, let's not say that it is an established fact that EVM are rigging free. The machines can be tampering prone, software can be altered, and due to these issues and lack of security, EVM projects have been left, they have been closed down in Germany, Holland, Ireland, Italy, Finland. So,
right.
And
so why did you include it in 2017 law? Why did you include it in 2017 law?
Let me tell you why we included it. Because the ECP has to do pilot projects, and then progressively, if the pilot projects are successful, then implement it at a bit larger scale, and then further enlarge it. You cannot go for EVMs all of a sudden in 2 years all across the country. That does not happen anywhere. It is impractical. It's not done anywhere in the world. It hasn't been done. So, for all these reasons, the question is, let me finish.
Jahanzeb, I get what you're saying, and I respect it. I understand that there should be a pilot project, there should be steps, right? At this moment, we are not even talking about that stage. We are failing to even talk about the machines, or should the Election Commission start something at this moment?
Sir, the reason is that the government is not listening. It's not the government's job to go select the machine and talk to, buyers that, how much the machine is going to cost, when are you going to, what is the delivery time. It's not their job. It is not the job of the Science Ministry. It is the ECP's job. And now, this is what is happening in the country. That the government is bullying...
manufacture a machine?
No. It is their mandate to go select a machine, experiment with it. If it doesn't work, go for another machine. It's not the government's job to, say that we have selected this machine and we will be procuring it. Not at all. They're going beyond their mandate. What I'm saying is that the government is bullying the ECP. This is our narrative. What is our narrative?
You're yourself a businessman. Can you tell me how many companies in the private sector within the country? I assume that it is going to take place within the country, or you want to actually outsource the work of actually manufacturing machines. How many companies have the technical capability and experience within Pakistan to manufacture these machines within a stipulated time? Otherwise, then Science Ministry will have to step in.
That process should be initiated by the ECP, not by the Science Ministry and shoved it, to be accepted by the ECP. You're going it the wrong way. And the other thing is, it has to happen progressively. Now, the clash between ECP and the government, there is a history behind it. Just this year in January, our Prime Minister was talking very well about Raja Sikandar Saab. He was, saying that he is the man who is going to take ECP forward and what not. It was only after the Daska election that, firing started from the government towards the ECP and its boss.
And then all later of a sudden, your praise also started. You were very critical of ECP, and all of a sudden, after Daska, you became fans, and the government was they seemed annoyed.
Of course, because, they were caught red-handed. And if the ECP was taking action on, catching PTI government in kidnapping the presiding officers, we would obviously appreciate it. They were caught, the whole country saw what happened. So, moving forward...
But somehow it becomes a zero-sum game. And that is a problem. Our institutions should not be subject to.
Now moving forward. Moving forward, now the ECP brought 37 points or, issues with the EVM. And the reaction of the government, rather than responding logically to those 37 points, was that the ECP takes bribes, they are thieves, and they should be set on fire. Now, obviously, this all case seems that the government is on an agenda. What is that agenda? What is the emergency? Why not build a consensus? Why are you bulldozing a legislation or bills which have to be brought by consensus? Otherwise, they're redundant. There is no point in pushing electoral reforms without any consensus. So the questions have to be answered by the government.
Right, but in the lawmaking process, at least the opposition should be listening to the government. There is no harm in sitting together, trying to actually build bridges, and another committee is going to be formed. An invitation will be extended to your party's leadership. Let me come back to Ahmed Jawad Saab. There's a lot that you can talk about. One, the machines, they have to be phase-wise, and you are not doing that. Secondly, you all of a sudden have launched this barrage of attacks on the Election Commission. And the third thing is, when you look at the overall capacity, it is basically not the job of Science Ministry to actually create a prototype and force everybody to accept it. This is what he was saying. Your response.
First of all, let's have some insight into the history of electronic voting machine in Pakistan. It was before 2013 elections when first time Election Commission of Pakistan brought EVM for deliberation and consultation by all political parties. And there were few vendors from international market on EVM, and then EVM prototype was also made by ComSets locally, and the trials were conducted, everything was okay, but then it was People's Party who said that it's too early and we have to do certain things before we go for it, so it was shelved at that time. And those EVMs,
you realize that we have limited time and we cannot go into the detailed history of everything.
No,
so you'll have to very quickly answer the questions.
I will not answer quickly because I've been listening throughout the program. And if I explain something which is most relevant to the subject of election reforms, then you tell me there is less time and I have to do it quickly.
Sir, but
you can go to the next guest, I don't mind.
But are you recommending that we overlap the news bulletin, go beyond our stipulated time?
Because I was listening most of the time.
You were speaking.
I was trying to explain you something about electronic voting machine, and you thought that it's irrelevant, and I should do it quickly. So I think then there is no need. You can take the opinion of opposition. You can take the views of an expert. You don't need a PTI representative here, so I don't mind.
Sir,
I can keep quiet.
No, but
not the way.
I mean, you actually want to talk about history?
To be very sensitive.
No,
you don't want to answer the question.
You want me to talk what you expect. You ask a question, leave the answer to me.
Yeah, but
why I am telling you the history of EVM is that just to bring this point that this is not something new brought by PTI. It has been brought by
I'm glad you said this. When was the first stage that was started?
I already told you, and I was going further.
You told about the actual prototype, right? But you have to start the trials, the first phase trial. When was it started?
Allow me to speak of all the points which have been
discussed.
discussed.
Allow me to ask questions. This is my job. Otherwise,
think,
you can come.
Okay, please, you take the opposition view. I think I can understand. Today, the role of government representative was to keep silent. This is what you want, so I keep silent.
No, there has to be an answer.
No, then you allow me to speak on this subject. And don't dictate me that you have to answer this thing. Let me talk about EVM. Let me talk about election reforms. Let me talk about internet voting. Let me talk about the comments by the opposition.
And you are not going to answer.
And none of these are answering your question.
I mean,
none of these are answering your question.
I asked you 3 questions. Are you going to talk about that, or you are going to keep on saying that you need to answer?
No, Farrukh, I am sorry. You are not letting me to give my point of view from the government perspective of all the comments which have come from the opposition, which have been raised by you, which has been discussed, when I try to explain, you don't want to listen to it. So that's what I'm saying.
I twice came to you and I got detailed answers. There was a break and then you got additional time.
So anyway, you want me to listen, I can speak, but if you don't want, there is no problem.
Right, with due respect. I mean,
no one wants
keep
to
on doing
the
this.
government.
Sir, Dana Sahab, I'm told that we have run out of time, but sir, with due respect, it was a great opportunity to sell.
You did
your
not give
point
me
of
the
view.
opportunity, sir.
And there
Let
was
me
a
tell
question.
You did not allow me to speak during this program.
No, I kept on
And
asking you.
I tried to explain about EVM, about
When
its
was the
history,
first phase started?
and
Did you go phase-wise? Why are you criticizing the Chief Election Commissioner? Right? This is a question that was raised, and it was your opportunity to dispel the impression. And the third one was, of course, whether it is purview of the Science Ministry or Election Commission. These are legitimate questions. You don't want to answer them?
yeah, of course I was coming to that, but I have to also answer the comments which are made during the program.
And they are the
I
points
have to
that I
clarify.
pointed out.
I have to clarify those points.
By going into history. Nobody was raising history.
If you have never heard about it, then I can't say. But the public, the nation should know that EVM came to scene not by PTI. It came to scene 10 years ago by Election Commission of Pakistan, and it was a proven machine at that time. Nobody had any objection. This is what I wanted to bring about. That EVM is not something alien which has been brought by PTI. It was brought in the history before also. Yeah, and everybody accepted this thing.
When was it deployed?
And you did not allow me after that. Election Commission of Pakistan was supposed to carry out the pilot projects in the by-elections, which they never conducted.
Ahmed Jawad Sahab, I was repeatedly telling you that I am being told that we have to conclude the program. Unfortunately, I kept on asking the same question and again
I'm sorry
and again.
You did not allow me.
No, sir, you did not allow yourself.
No, you did not allow me.
Because, of
you
course...
kept interrupting me.
I
had all the
points.
I had written down all the points from the opposition, from this discussion. I wanted to answer, but you did not.
Right.
But it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I mean, you're entitled to your views, but...
of course I'm entitled. I'm not entitled to your views. I'm entitled to my views.
You realize that you missed a golden opportunity to clarify or answer the questions.
I have the golden opportunities to air my views on many channels, if not allowed here.
Right. Next time you do another thing. You sit here, I will not appear, and you just talk to the camera.
No, I did not ask.
Ahmed Jawad Sahab, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Dana Hassan Afzal Sahab, thank you very much for your precious time. Arif Chaudhry Sahab, thank you very much for your participation and your patience. Viewers, you have listened to the government's point of view or lack of it, and you have listened to the opposition's point of view or lack of it, and of course a technical comment also. These are important stories and we have to keep on covering them. But I think that we shouldn't as a nation be so broken that we cannot even talk to each other, right? That becomes a big problem. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.